Hello and welcome to the Daily News Simplified, an answer to what, why and how of newspaper reading. Today we will be analysing the important news appearing in the Sunday edition of the Hindu newspaper dated 8 September 2019. The topics to be discussed today are reflected on your screen and the timestamping for the same has been provided in the description box below. So let's begin. This news appears on page number 7 and it reads, 6 held for smuggling pangolins. Therefore, in our discussion today, we will be talking about pangolins, and this discussion of ours will become relevant from the perspective of prelims, especially in the category of environment. Now, the pangolins, as you can see in this picture here, are large scaly mammals. In fact, pangolins are the only scaly mammal present on Earth. Pangolins have large overlapping scale on its body, which act like an armor, and they usually curl into a ball as a self-defense against the predators like lions, tigers, etc. Now, since pangolins are toothless, they use their long sticky tongues to catch insects. Further, these pangolins are nocturnal, that is, they are usually active in the night and rest in deep burrows during the day. And they are also insectivore, that is, they feed on insects like ants, termites, which they dig out of mounds using their long claws. Now, in total, there are 8 pangolin species, out of which 4 are found in Asia and 4 are found in Africa. So therefore, please remember that pangolins are only found in Asia and Africa. Now in Asia, basically 4 species are found, namely the Indian pangolin, the Chinese pangolin, the Sunda pangolin and the Philippine pangolin. Moving ahead, specifically in India, only 2 species are found, namely the Indian pangolin and the Chinese pangolin. Now the Indian pangolin are found sporadically throughout India in places like Himalayan foothills, the northern plains as well as southern India. However, please note here that the Indian pangolin is also found in countries like Bangladesh, Pakistan and Sri Lanka. Hence, it will be wrong to say that Indian pangolin is only found in India. Moreover, the Indian pangolin has been listed as endangered under the IUCN's Red List. Moving ahead, the next is the Chinese pangolin. Now, the Chinese pangolin in India is usually found in the northeastern states, and further it is found spread out throughout Southeast Asia. Therefore, even the Chinese pangolin is not just only limited to India, but is found in Southeast Asia as well. And the IUCN status of the Chinese pangolin is critically endangered. Further, you should know that both the Indian and the Chinese pangolins have also been put under Schedule 1 of the Wildlife Protection Act of 1972. Moving ahead, let us see what are the threats to the pangolins. Now, poaching of pangolins for international wildlife trafficking is a major threat to the species. In fact, it is estimated that since 2000, more than 1 million pangolins have been traded illegally at the international level, making them the most trafficked mammal in the world. Now, especially with respect to India, now due to the global focus, the smuggling of rhino horns and tiger parts has dropped from India to China. However, this smuggling of rhino horns and tiger parts has now been replaced by an increase in the trafficking of pangolins and the geckos. Now, pangolins are basically killed for their meat, which is considered as a delicacy among several communities and is also consumed due to its alleged medicinal property. In fact, pangolin scales are widely used in traditional Oriental medicines and they are also associated with magic. Therefore, it is due to this reason that the pangolins are in great demand in China and Vietnam. Furthermore, pangolins are also killed for their skin, which is used for leather purposes. In addition to this, another hurdle in the conservation efforts of pangolin is the fact that pangolins only produce one offspring. Hence, due to their limited reproduction, their conservation efforts become all the more difficult. Additionally, you should know that pangolins are included in the CITES Appendix 1, which will hire them the highest level of protection under CITES. And this basically means that all kind of commercial international trade of the pangolin has been banned. Further, the Appendix 1 listing of the pangolin will also serve as an incentive for the world's governments to step up the law enforcement and demand better efforts to protect the species. So this was all about the pangolins. With this, let's move on to our next news. This news appears on page number 14 and it reads, what is ration card portability? This news is in the context of the One Nation, One Ration Card scheme, and in particular it is talking about what all challenges the scheme can face. Now we have spoken about One Nation, One Ration Card scheme as well as the National Food Security Act before. However, today again we will discuss about this topic, wherein our focus will be more upon who will be the benefit of the scheme or what will be the issues and difficulties which can come in the way of implementation of the scheme. Now this entire discussion of ours will become relevant from the perspective of GS Paper 2 under the category of Polity as well as also from the perspective of GS Paper 3 under the category of Economy. Now, India is already running the world's largest food security program in the form of the National Food Security Act of 2013. And every year, India distributes almost 600 lakh tons of subsidized food grain to more than 81 crore beneficiaries. And this distribution is basically done through a vast network of more than 5 lakh ration shops or fair price shops. However, until recently, the benefits under the food security program were basically location linked, which means that every household's ration card was linked to a specific ration shop or a fair price shop, and the ration card could only be used to buy rations in that particular shop. And because of this, crore of migrant workers and families were left out of the food safety net. But despite this provision, over the last few years, various states had implemented the integrated management of the public distribution system, under which it allowed the beneficiaries to buy rations from any fair price shop within their state. Therefore, please keep in mind that earlier also, under the integrated management of PDS, states were allowing people to buy ration from any shop in their state. But now the centre, by launching the One Nation, One Ration Card scheme, wants to expand this same provision onto a national level through the nationwide portability network. That is to say, now the beneficiaries can buy subsidized grain from any ration shop throughout India, irrespective of the state they belong to. But having said so, in order to make One Nation, One Ration Card a reality, there are certain requirements that need to be in place first. The foremost of them is that the scheme will involve the creation of a central repository, and this central repository will integrate all the existing database of all the states. Because obviously, if we are providing nationwide portability, we first need to have the data which is stored with the states, because there is a high possibility that a person whose data is stored with one state might go and buy ration from some other state. Therefore, creation of a central repository is a must. Secondly, for the scheme to work, it is very important that all the fair price shops in India are equipped with electronic point of sale machine. Because we need to replace the old method of manual record keeping of transaction with this new digital real-time record through the electronic point of sale machine. And thirdly, for this One Nation, One Ration Card, even Aadhaar seeding is required, because Aadhaar seeding will help to authenticate as well as track the usage of ration cards by the beneficiary anywhere in the country. So now that we know what is the One Nation, One Ration Card, let us talk more about what will be the benefit of the scheme. Now coming to what are the benefits of this One Nation, One Ration Card scheme. The main beneficiaries of the scheme will be the country's migrant workers. According to the data from the census of 2011, India has more than 45 crores of internal migrants. Now the majority of these migrants have very low level of education, and this low level of their education is linked to lower income. Hence, due to the fact that majority of them are uneducated and poor, most of these migrants become eligible under the National Food Security Act, thereby getting entitled to get subsidized food grains. However, since earlier there was no national portability of these ration cards, these migrants, when they shifted to a new states, they were not able to avail the benefits of the National Food Security Act. Because firstly, registering for ration card at new location is a very tedious and arduous process. Moreover, field studies have shown that almost 10 crore people are short-term migrants, which means that these people do not migrate permanently to some another state. Therefore, such short-term migrants too do not apply for a new ration card at a new place, because they know they have to come back to their original place once their work gets over. The third benefit is that it will become much more easier for the women who also migrate to some other places after marriage. Because earlier women also found it very difficult to access the ration benefits using a new household's ration card. But now, because of One Nation, One Ration Card, it will even become easier for the women who after marriage migrate to a new place. The second benefit of the ration card portability is that it will help to remove the monopolies which was held by the shopkeepers. Moreover, it will also help to curb corruption and improve the access and service quality. Because under the old system, the beneficiaries were dependent on a single fair price shop to purchase ration. And therefore, many a time these shopkeepers used to subject such people to their whims and fancies. However, under the new system, if a beneficiary is denied a service or faces corruption or poor quality in one shop, then he has the option to go buy ration from some different ration shop. And the third advantage is a rather indirect one. As discussed earlier, for the successful implementation of this scheme, it is very important that all the data regarding the food storage and the PDS system has to be integrated and has to be digitized. Therefore, it is felt that this scheme will lead to a faster digitization and integration of the food storage and the PDS system. Next, let us talk about what are the possible challenges which lie ahead for this scheme. The first major problem is related to the installation and the access of the electronic point of sale machines. Now currently, there are only around 4.3 lakh of EPOS machines which have been installed in more than 5.3 lakh fair price shops. Further, it has been found out that much of the gap in the installation of the point of sale machine comes from Northeast India, Bihar, Uttarakhand as well as West Bengal. And the reason this becomes a difficulty is because West Bengal and Bihar are the major source states of migrants. Hence, in this regard, it is very important that all these states have to speed up their process of installing the EPOS. Moreover, it has been found out that in the rural and remote areas, the connectivity is so erratic that the smooth functioning of the scheme is becoming difficult. Hence, considering all these points, the installation as well as the access to this EPOS machine becomes very important because without this machine, the implementation will not be smooth. Secondly, there have been widespread complaints about system failures which has led to denial of food. In fact, Jharkhand was a state which was one of the most earlier adopter of this digitization and Aadhaar-based biometric authentication under the NFSA. However, it was found out that in the Ranchi district, almost 20 to 40% of the beneficiaries were unable to buy their ration due to system failures or irregularities in the PDS system. Therefore, the government needs to watch out even against system failures and irregularities. The third challenge comes from the fact that the ration benefits which are offered by certain states and which is offered by the central government under the NFSA is different. For example, in Tamil Nadu, one will get 20 kgs of free rice per month and will also get subsidized sugar, pulses, oil, etc. However, under the NFSA, a person is entitled to get only 3 kg of rice, 2 kg of wheat and 1 kg of coarse cereal. So this difference between the ration benefits is another problem. And because the central government has stated that it will only cover the cost for all the ration which is provided under the NFSA, the state governments had made it clear that they will not offer the extra benefits to the migrants who are coming to their state. So for example, if a migrant in Tamil Nadu was getting all these extra benefits, if he migrates to let's say some other state of Karnataka or Kerala, then he will only be eligible to get the benefit under the NFSA and not the benefit what he was getting in Tamil Nadu. Now another issue could arise if the members of a single household are split between two different locations. Because the current guidelines of the scheme state that in such a situation, a person can purchase only half of the subsidized grains at one time so as to prevent that one member from taking the entire benefit and then leaving the other family members in some different location without food. So to give you an example, there is a household in Bihar and the male member from the household moves or comes to Delhi for work. Hence, in this situation, the guidelines of the scheme state that the person who has shifted to Delhi can only withdraw half of the grains at one time so as to ensure his family members who are back in Bihar can avail the other half of the benefits. Last and the fifth challenge, that there is lack of data on interstate migration, especially the short-term migration. Now this will become a challenge because it can disrupt the allocation of food grains to the state. Let's understand this by taking an example. For example, let's say in the state of Bihar, when there is a season of growing rice, majority of the people in the villages stay there and grow rice. However, when the rice season gets over, such people start migrating to other cities and other major areas so as to get employment. So very logically, when the person was staying in Bihar, the requirement of food grains for Bihar would be a lot more than when the person has shifted to say Delhi or some other city. Therefore, due to the fact that we have vast number of short-term migrants, the amount of food grains which are needed by the state also keep on changing. And because we do not have proper data on such interstate migration trends, there might be a problem for additional delivery to cover up any shortfalls in the state with large migrant population. In fact, this has been even acknowledged by food ministry officials who themselves are saying that having such data is very important to ensure that movement of the grain matches the movement of the migrants. So this was all what this article was stating. With this, let's move on to our next news. This news appears on page number 11 and it reads, Gaganyaan for manned space mission on track official. Now ISRO has clarified that the Chandrayaan-2 mission will have absolutely no impact on ISRO's ambitious manned mission Gaganyaan, which is scheduled to be launched in 2022. Hence, for today's discussion, we will be talking about what is the Gaganyaan mission. And this entire discussion of ours will become relevant both from the perspective of prelims as well as for mains under GS paper 3 in the category of science and technology, especially space technology. Now, Gaganyaan is India's first manned space mission. By manned space mission, we mean that men or human beings will be sent to the outer space. Hence, in a way, the Gaganyaan will demonstrate India's human space flight capability. Hence, it isn't wrong to say that the Gaganyaan is India's first human space flight program. Now, under Gaganyaan, the manned space mission will go to the low Earth orbit for a duration ranging from one orbital period to a maximum of 7 days. And for this Gaganyaan, a human-rated GSLV Mk3 will be used. And this GSLV Mk3 will have all the necessary provisions to carry a 3-member crew for the entire duration of the mission. As mentioned, it will carry the crew to low Earth orbit and is expected to be launched by 2022. Now under Gaganyaan, there are basically 3 flights. 2 are unmanned flight and 1 is a manned flight. So therefore, India will first send 2 unmanned flights to the space, and if they are successful, then India will send the third and the final manned flight to space. Let us now see what will be the benefits if Gaganyaan becomes successful. Successful completion of Gaganyaan will make India the 4th country in the world to send a manned space mission. Before India, already Russia, USA and China have already sent a manned space mission. Additionally, the Gaganyaan mission will help to establish a broader framework for collaboration between ISRO, academia, national agencies, industries as well as other scientific organizations. Further, it will also allow for pooling in of diverse technological and industrial capabilities and hence will enable the broader participation in various research opportunities. Next, the Gaganyaan mission is expected to generate employment and train human resources in advanced technologies. Next, it will also inspire the next generation to take up science and technology and therefore will help in nation building. Moreover, if the Gaganyaan mission is successful, it will have a spin-off effect in other various areas such as medicine, agriculture, industrial safety, waste management, etc. And lastly, if India is able to successfully demonstrate its human spaceflight capability, then India can participate as a collaborating partner in various other global space exploration initiatives and programs with the other countries and space organizations. Now, having discussed the benefits, let us also briefly talk about what could be the challenges which India might have to face. The first challenge is the fact that ISRO does not execute manned space on its own. By this we mean that ISRO is actually dependent on the Indian Air Force to pick men who can be trained to be astronauts and can be sent in the manned space mission. Therefore, obviously, the Indian Air Force will have an important say on all the decisions taken in the Gaganyaan mission. The second challenge is the fast approaching timeline. Now we have to understand this fact that ISRO for a very long time has been launching various satellites for communication or remote sensing purposes. However, such satellites are meant to remain in the space. But on the other hand, a manned spacecraft needs to come back to Earth. Therefore, there are certain essential features of a manned spacecraft mission, which is firstly, the capability to re-enter the Earth's atmosphere. Secondly, is the presence of a life support system in the module. And third, we also need to have an escape system so that the astronauts can eject safely in case of a faulty launch. Now, though ISRO has conducted a couple of tests on the re-entry technology, a test on the escape system, and various other individual component tests, however, more tests are still required to be done over the next 2-3 years, which might take a lot of time. Additionally, here you should know that especially for Gaganyaan, the spacecraft to enter back into the Earth's atmosphere is known as the Crew Module Atmospheric Re-entry Technology, or the short form CARE. Because while re-entering the Earth's atmosphere, the spacecraft needs to withstand very high temperatures which are created due to friction. Further, the escape system, which is a part of the Gaganyaan mission, is known as the Crew Escape System PAT. This Crew Escape System is an emergency accident avoidance measure designed to quickly get astronauts and their spacecraft away from the launch vehicle if a malfunction occurs during the initial stage of the launch. PAT stands for Pad Abort Test. And lastly, the Special Life Support System in the module is known as the Environmental Control and Life Support System, or the ECLLS. And this will ensure that the module has conditions which are suitable for human to live in comfortably. Therefore, it will include maintaining steady cabin pressure and air composition, removing carbon dioxide and other harmful gases, controlling temperature and humidity, etc. So basically, this is all about Gaganyaan. With this, let's move on to our next news. This news appears on page number 14 and it reads, Beyond Gender Binaries. Now, the context of this article is that in April 2019, the Madras High Court, through its judgment, has banned the sex assignment surgeries on intersex infants and children. Hence, in this regard, we will first be talking about what are the intersex infants, and then we will be looking into the rationale of the Madras High Court judgment. Now, intersex, or differences of sexual development, or the DSD, is basically an umbrella term that refers to all those people who are born with variation in sex characteristics that do not fit into the typical binary definition of a boy or a girl. By this we mean that sometimes people are born and they have such variation in their sexual characteristics that it is very difficult to categorize them into either a girl or a boy. Now, these differences in the sexual development can either be in the chromosome or in the internal organs or even in the genitals. In fact, many a times, a lot of intersex traits are not even discovered until a person hits puberty or when people have difficulty conceiving. So therefore, we can understand that intersex infants is a very huge and an umbrella term which includes all kind of differences in sexual development which might occur at the chromosome level or can be reflected through sexual variation in internal organs or genitals. Now, some of the examples of intersex infants would include that firstly, the external genitals of the infant cannot be easily classified as either male or female. Second, incomplete or unusual development of the internal reproductive organ. Third, inconsistency between the external genitals and the internal reproductive organs. Fourthly, abnormalities of the sex chromosomes. Fifth, abnormal development of the testes or the ovaries, which are the reproductive part of human beings. Sixthly, over or underproduction of sex-related hormones such as estrogen or testosterone. And lastly, even the inability of the body to respond normally to sex-related hormone can be a type of DSD. Now, usually when babies are born with DSD, doctors usually perform a sex assignment surgery to provide a certain kind of gender identity to the baby, either as a male or a female. And in certain extreme circumstances, these surgeries become very important in order to prevent the death of such babies or infants. So please bear in mind that the word used is sex assignment and not sex reassignment, because here the doctor is trying to assign a binary gender identity to the child either as a male or as a female. Now, the Madras High Court banned the sex assignment surgeries on the infant and children by stating that such surgeries can be performed only in life-threatening situations. Further, the court said that such a decision would be taken based on the recommendation of a committee which will comprise of pediatric surgeons, endocrinologist, social worker or an intersex activist as well as a government representative. Further, the court was of the opinion that the consent of the parents cannot be regarded as the consent of the child and that the child should be given the freedom to decide his or her own gender when they grow up. Moreover, the court also relied on World Health Organization's report which termed such sex assignment surgeries as intersex genital mutation. Hence, on the basis of these observations, the court has banned the sex assignment surgeries on infants and kids. Now, as a way forward, we need to remember that there are differences between the gender, the sexual identity, as well as the sexual orientation. Now, while gender identity is assigned at birth on the basis of anatomy, including both internal and external sexual organs, sexual identity is what one sees oneself as. That is, whether a person perceives themselves to be a female or a male. And sexual orientation, of course, is the sex a person is attracted to physically. Furthermore, the invalidation of Section 377 of the IPC provides a person to choose their sexual identity and their sexual orientation. Hence, in this regard, the Madras High Court's judgment provides the freedom to intersex babies to decide their gender and sexual identity. This is why this judgment can be considered as a landmark judgment. And lastly, we need to understand that ultimately the success of this judgment depends upon its proper implementation. In fact, the parents too have to be counseled to accept their children as they are and to give their children the necessary time and space to decide on their gender. So these were the main points of this article. With this, let's move on to our next news. This news appears on page number 8 and it reads, Genomic Grid for India-Specific Cancer Research. Now, the Government of India is planning to set up a national genomic grid to study the genomic data of all the cancer patients in India. Hence, in this regard, let us talk about the importance of genomic data in the diagnosis and treatment of cancer. Now, cancer is one of the most common genetic diseases which is caused due to mutations in the DNA. Now, these mutations in the DNA can either be inherited but can also arise randomly during a person's lifetime, either due to exposure to DNA damaging carcinogens or as a result of errors which occur as the cells are dividing. Now, each person's cancer has a unique combination of genetic changes, and these unique DNA changes can be identified through genetic testing. Under the genetic testing, the DNA of the person under examination is compared with the genomic data of a cancer patient so as to diagnose the cancer. Further, once the cancer has been diagnosed, appropriate and targeted treatment plans can be devised so as to treat people with the mutations on a particular gene. Now, basically what happens is that since cancer is a genetic disease, the mutation which causes cancer is linked to a particular gene. And as part of the genomic grid, genetic testing will be done so that we can better understand the genes which undergo mutation, and this will help in a way that once we recognize which gene is responsible for what kind of cancer, then we can have targeted treatment where we will only treat the mutation on that particular gene. Therefore, keeping in mind the importance of this genomic data, the government wants to set up a national genomic grid to study the genomic data of the cancer patients. And to establish this, a pan-India collection centers will be set up in all the cancer treatment institutions. Hence, overall, setting up of this national genomic grid will help us to better understand the genomic factors that cause cancer so that we can develop better treatment plans targeting a particular gene only. Further, this genomic grid will be developed on the lines of the National Cancer Tissue Biobank. Now, this National Cancer Tissue Biobank is a joint initiative of the Department of Science and Technology and IIT Madras. Now, this bank, with the consent of the patients who are diagnosed with cancer, collects their cancer tissue samples. Additionally, even the information about their previous medical history as well as treatment, and even the treatment is also documented along with these tissue samples. In fact, this National Cancer Tissue Biobank is one of its kind facility in India, and it wants to provide researchers with high quality of cancer tissues so that they can better understand and carry out research on cancer. So this was all about the genomic data for cancer. With this, let's move on to our next news. This news has been taken from page number 13 and it reads, Panel set up to identify infrastructure projects for 100 lakh crore investment. And this discussion of ours will become relevant from the perspective of economy. The context of the news is that recently the Union Finance Minister has constituted a task force under the chairmanship of the Secretary, Department of Economic Affairs, to identify all those infrastructure projects which can be eligible to get 100 lakh crore worth of investment. Now, the reason for setting up such task force was that during his Independence Day speech, Prime Minister Narendra Modi highlighted that India will have to invest almost 100 lakh crore rupees on infrastructure over the next 5 years if it wants to achieve its goal of becoming a $5 trillion economy by 24-25. And hence, in this regard, India needs to spend almost $1.4 trillion on infrastructure by 24-25. However, if we compare in the past decade, that is from 2008 to 2017, India has invested only about 1.1 trillion on infrastructure. So basically now India has to invest almost 1.4 trillion in the next 5 to 6 years. Furthermore, the challenge here is that India will have to set up an annual infrastructure investment so that the lack of infrastructure does not stop India from becoming a $5 trillion economy. Now, as far as the terms of reference of this task force is concerned, this task force firstly, of course, has to identify all the technically feasible as well as financially viable infrastructure projects that can be initiated in 2019-20. Next, this task force has to list down all the projects that can be included in the pipeline for each of the remaining 5 years between financial year 2021 to 25. Furthermore, it also has to estimate the annual infrastructure investment or the capital cost that will be incurred by India. Fourthly, it has to guide all the ministries in identifying the appropriate source of financing or funding for this infrastructure investment. And lastly, it also has to suggest some measures to monitor the projects so that cost and time overrun is minimized. Furthermore, the National Infrastructure Pipeline, which means all those projects which are to be listed down for the remaining 5 years, can include both greenfield as well as brownfield projects which cost above 100 crore each. Furthermore, to be included in the pipeline for current year, the qualifications will include availability of a DPR, feasibility of implementation, inclusion in the finance planning, as well as the availability of administrative sanction. Furthermore, under this project, each ministry or the department will be responsible for monitoring of projects so as to ensure their timely and within cost implementation. So these are the major points of this news. With this, let's move on to our practice questions. Now, based on our today's discussion, here is a prelims practice question. Please pause the video and solve them. We'll discuss the answer after 5 seconds. The first question is with respect to pangolins. The first statement reads, the Indian pangolin is found only in India. Now, this is incorrect. The Indian pangolin is also found in Pakistan, Bangladesh as well as Sri Lanka. The second statement, they are protected under the CITES Appendix 2. This is incorrect. They are protected under the CITES Appendix 1. Therefore, the correct answer becomes D, neither 1 nor 2. Question number 2 is with respect to Gaganyaan. The first statement, it is India's manned space mission. This is correct. Second, a PSLV will be used to carry the crew into space. This is incorrect. Gaganyaan will be using GSLV Mk3 to carry the crew into the space. Therefore, the right answer becomes A, 1 only. Question number 3 is with respect to the One Nation, One Ration card. The first statement, for the first time, a person will be able to take grains from a ration shop located outside his locality. Now, this is incorrect. In our discussion, we spoke about the fact that earlier also, some state had implemented the integrated management of the PDS system, wherein a person could buy the ration from any fair price shop located anywhere in the state. Second statement, Aadhaar seeding is not compulsory under the scheme. This is incorrect. So therefore, the correct answer to this question becomes D, neither 1 nor 2. Question number 4 is with respect to the National Cancer Tissue Biobank. The first statement, it is an initiative of Ministry of Health and Family Welfare. Now, this is incorrect. It is an initiative of the Department of Science and Technology as well as IIT Madras. The second statement, it collects cancer tissue sample of patients with their consent. This is correct. Hence, the right answer becomes B, 2 only. With this, we come to an end for today's discussion. Let's move to the question for the day.